Welcome back to Peak Performance Training. My name is Idris Smith, and I'm the High Performance Director at Wheaton Sports Center in Wheaton, Illinois. I've served as the Tennis Academy Director at Peachtree City Tennis Center as well, and also the Elite Homeschool Director there. Again, we are privileged to have Dr. Young back from Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. Dr. Young has 30 years of experience in the field of sports psychology. He was one of the first doctors in sports psychology at the University of Virginia. And so, again, Dr. Young, as usual, thank you for being here. And again, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, listen, what's more important than myself is what we do for our viewers. But very, very quickly, Dennis Vandermeer, the famous South African teaching pro, brought me to Hilton Head right out of the University of Virginia. And believe it or not, the year was 1990. So I guess we are realistic in terms of 30 years of experience working with parents and children and athletes at all levels of the sport. What I wanted to talk about today is I told several people that when I arrived from the University of Virginia, I had all my belongings from grad school, Idris, in a U-Haul and an old car that could barely make it from the University of Virginia to Hilton Head Island. And I spent the whole time trailing because I was driving so slow. I had so much stuff in the U-Haul. I was trailing trucks all the way down. And as I got closer to South Carolina, I started seeing more pickup trucks. So I'm putting along behind them and I'm reading these bumper stickers like, my pit bull's smarter than your honor student. And the next one I read said, if y'all can read this, you're probably not from around here. so I decided, well, all this fancy theory from the University of Virginia isn't going to play very well down here. I better come up with bumper stickers. So
I like that.
I've got a bumper sticker for us today, and that is, even though we're in the middle of a virus, you don't have to be sick to get better. And what I mean by that is, this is a fabulous opportunity for all of us who are now sheltered in place, keeping our social distance. Many of us are homebound. This is a great opportunity to add to our games, to add to ourselves. We're being brought back the values that made this a great country: family, our faith, helping each other, helping neighbors. I mean, I really think we're going to come out the other end of this virus stronger than we ever were. We just have to be patient and we have to be good neighbors to each other and be kind to each other. Absolutely. Now, having said that, I teach with stories, and I have a quick one. When I was finishing my work at UVA in sports psychology, I worked with Coach Chuck Creasy, the famous Clemson coach, who is now the coach at the Citadel in Charleston, South Carolina, and Pat Jensen, mother to Luke and Murphy Jensen. And we're in Michigan getting ready for Kalamazoo for the Nationals. And I get off the plane, Pat Jensen meets me, and Pat is full of energy. I mean, you see Luke and Murphy, you know where the energy comes from.
That's right.
It comes from her and their father, Howard, who played for the New York Giants in football. Okay. I jump off. I'm all smiles. There's no place I'd rather be. I'm getting to work with athletes. I'm going to Kalamazoo, get to do my mental coaching. She goes, I don't know if you're a mental coach. You look like Mr. Rogers. And I started to laugh. And I think at first I was kind of taken back. And the more I thought about it, I thought, gosh, I kind of like that. I wouldn't mind being thought of as the Mr. Rogers of mental coaches. And later on, I actually went back and studied Fred Rogers, who did the PBS show, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, forever. I mean, it was one of the most popular shows ever. And I learned about him that when he was in the military, he was one of the most respected people in the military by his men for his courage and his leadership by example. He took all of that look at the sensitivity he gave to young children and parents.
Right.
And so we're talking about peak performance training for parents. And what I learned reading about him and following what he did, he talked about no one is more important to a young child, and we can say to a young child athlete, than their parents, because that is the safe haven they've got to come back to, win, lose, or draw. And so I put together some parent do's and don'ts today, and I hope the parents will be patient with me because I'm a parent.
I like that.
And our son and daughter went through junior and high school tennis, and they're still playing as adults. Now our granddaughters are playing. But here are just a few things to consider. A parent do to me is be that safe haven for the child, win or lose. There shouldn't be a discernible difference. For example, one thing I learned as a young coach, I didn't always know what to say after a tough loss. And when I was a young high school coach and young college coach, after a loss, sometimes I was just stoic up there driving the van back from the match because I didn't know what to say. But I came to realize the more I studied psychology that I was speaking volumes through my silence, that everything was fun and everything was joyful when we won. But boy, there was a lot of doom and gloom in the van when we lost, even though I hadn't said one negative word to anybody. And so I learned, no. In fact, it's probably more important after the loss that I listen and say, how's it going, ladies? How's it going, guys? You know? And boy, that was a tough one. You know, we're going to get through it together, just like we're going to get through coronavirus together. Sure, we're going to be challenged, but you get challenged on a tennis court. And so what I want our parents to realize is make this a joyful experience, whether it's going to the tournament, whether it's the ups and downs of the tournament. Realize that your children play is how young people learn life. That's their work. And so we don't want to make it more work. They're emotionally involved. They're giving everything they've got. We've got to give everything we've got to being there to support them. And that's what we do. Now, having said that, there are also parent don'ts. And we may have more time in the future. There's so many topics we want to cover. Yeah. But one of the don'ts is, and I smiled and talked about it in our last session, that when I'd walk in carrying the bag like I'm the parent for the 16-year-old, and I've got the water jug in one hand, I got the bag over my shoulder in the other hand, I come up to the tournament director with my child trailing behind as if they're not even there for the tournament, and say, all right, what time are we playing today? and what I always wanted to do, I've also been a tournament director. What I always wanted to say was, sir, I think you're a little old for the 16 and unders. Because we're not playing. We may think we are. Right. But it's their sport and their match, and we've got to help them learn through getting to play it.
Well, and you know what? I think sometimes a lot of parents, because they play, they want to take that same kind of ownership as well. Like, you know, it's our match, you know.
So well stated. And the parents, and this is all the way to the pro tour level. The parents I've talked to who seem to have the best relationship with their athletes, their children who've become top athletes, high school, college, juniors, pros, are the ones who step back and say, you know, I want you to know how proud I am of you. You're a member of our family. That worth isn't going to go up and down based on some tennis match, a win or a loss. Put it back in perspective. I mean, how can anyone find joy in sport when you're carrying the whole family on your shoulders with every match you play? and that your worth actually goes up with a win, but it goes down with a loss, probably the only safe place in that scenario is to get out of the sport as soon as you can get away from your parents and quit playing. And I've seen that happen, and it breaks my heart when it happens.
Yeah.
What we really do want this to be a lifetime sport. Our country's never needed anything more than wellness and fitness and places that are a healthy place to go out and really have some fun.
Right. Well, you know, Dr. Young, I remember with my son, who's now 18, we were living in Southern Florida at the time, and excuse me, he was about 7 years old, and I'm teaching him. My wife is filming some video, and so you're around all these world-class coaches, and you just want to fit in, and you know, you want your kid to be a world-class player. And I remember at 7 years old, I'm teaching him. He must have hit about 20 or 30 balls. Rick Macy wasn't too far away, so I used to go up and watch Rick and talk with him a lot. And Nick Saviano wasn't too far away from me as well, so I used to watch Nick, and he would, you know, say, "Idris, come up, watch, do whatever, you know, you can
Right.
watch and learn." And so I was learning a lot from those guys, and here I am trying to, excuse me, trying to implement some of that stuff with my kid. And at 7 years old, I went, "Get off the court, go away, and just go have fun." So at 7, I made him pretty much stop because I didn't want to really violate that relationship between 7 and 12. I wanted him to just go have fun. So it wasn't like I set uh, you know, I didn't have like a set number of years. I just said, "Hey, go have fun and go play." And it wasn't really until he hit about 11 or 12 that he
Mhm.
really picked it, like he really jumped into it and just went for it because I really wanted him to enjoy the sport later in life. I didn't want him to be, you know, a 17 or 18, 19-year-old who hit like their second or third year of college and was burned out and didn't want to play anymore. So I was really careful with that. And I don't know if that was a good decision or a bad decision, but, you know, he still likes the sport and, you know, we still get along great.
I no, I congratulate you and any parent who has the self-awareness and the self-discipline to be there as that safe haven to support the child. And someone once said the, the best psychology with your children is to find out something healthy they want to do and help them do more of it.
Mm,
That's a lot different than me telling our children, this is really good for you, you go do this. Can you feel the
right,
difference?
right, absolutely.
And so I think we're in a wonderful position right now. Um, while so many of us are at home, we're learning a lot about ourselves and our families by being in close contact. But simply do that from a place of how can we all be kind to each other. We're learning about ourselves, we're learning about each other, and we're going to come out the other end of this even stronger. And in closing today, what I'd like to say is I had the great honor of attending Arthur Ashe speaking to our undergraduate commencement at the University of Virginia the year I earned my doctorate.
Mm,
And I had done my research. My dissertation was on uh, predicting academic success for Black athletes, for our Black student athletes at the university. And Arthur, of course, was very interested in education for African American citizens. And so he took time away before the commencement. He was signing his book, Hard Road to Glory, which is a phenomenal history of the Black athlete in America,
mm,
to look at some of my dissertation. And
wow.
uh, and 2 years later, I met him on Hilton Head Island at the PTR Symposium where he was entering the Hall of Fame, and he was very ill at that time. He was very fragile.
Hmm,
And I just waited at the end of the line because so many, you can imagine, Arthur, how many people wanted
right,
to be with him and to be close to
absolutely.
him and have an autograph and so on. And when the line finally finished, I stepped up, and bless his heart, he smiled and he said, "I've got your research going out to some people that really need to see it."
Wow.
Now, that doesn't say a lot about Dr. Bryce Young. It says a ton about Arthur Ashe, because his awareness was always what needs to be done where and how can we do it. So what I'd like to say in closing today to honor Arthur is one of my favorite quotes from Arthur Ashe: "Do what you can with what you have where you are."
That's great. That is absolutely great. Um, Dr. Young, as always, thank you so much for being here on this early Saturday morning. And I'd like for you to make sure that you tell our listeners where they can contact you, where they can find you at again.
Very, very easy. Simply go to yourmentalcoach.com. There will be some more information about my wife and partner, Linda LeClaire, and myself. Some of our teaching aids, if you are at home right now, you can make use of, and we're here to serve. Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys. This has been another great edition of Peak Performance Training for Parents, as we are inside and trying to get some great mental training for our parents.